What is going on, guys? Thank you for entering the chamber once again. Today we're not only going to be taking a look at a kind of for fun deck list, but we're also going to be doing our giveaway for our 100 sub box opening. So make sure you stay tuned to the end of that to find out who the winner is. Now, as promised in the video thumbnail, today we're going to be looking at Stormfist Krillin. Krillin was a leader that kind of used to be really popular in this game, and he's still not a bad leader by modern standards. He draws a ton of cards. He's got built-in self-awakened. There are some good things about him. And today we're going to be looking at a blue-yellow Aegis control shell. At the end of the video, we're going to talk about what you can do against blue-yellow control. Because of some of the new cards coming out, blue-yellow control is probably going to become at least a new rogue strategy at minimum that people are going to have to account for. And even a lot of lower-to-the-ground shell blue-yellow decks, you know, like Aegis and some other yellow decks that are splashing blue, they're getting some new support that you need to be ready for, and we're going to talk about all of that at the end of the video when we go over matchups. So for now, let's just get started with the leader. So Krillin, he's a pretty straightforward leader. On his front side, when he attacks a leader card, you can take a life. If you take a life, you can draw a card. So you're pretty much always going to be doing that. When your life is at 4 or less, you can you can untap 1 energy, not 2, 1, and you awaken into Stormfist Krillin. Now this is kind of an interesting leader because this leader on this side, he draws both when he attacks and at the end of your turn. So he generates a ton of card advantage, which is actually useful for Aegis, or Aegis, sorry, I'm a Persona fan, for Aegis because of, you tend to need a lot of cards. So it's a good control leader choice. And then you can discard a card to give him a 5k boost in critical, and we have a way to kind of make that into a really powerful interaction. But yeah, the leader himself is very straightforward. He's mostly a draw engine to enable the rest of the deck. Now, because this is an Aegis deck, to start off with, we run a full playset of Violent Rush Bojack. Bojack is our mana rival target for a single yellow energy. And then we can pitch any multicolor to restand to energy, and because of his auto, we'll draw a card. So it basically lets us convert like extra multicolors into energy while also cycling to fill our drop, which we use for a couple of card effects. He's a 20k barrier, so he's pretty sticky. You know, he can be ran over, but otherwise he's a little hard to remove. And he enables a lot of the other plays that we make in this deck and makes certain things that we do safer. And we actually have kind of a spicy energy jump with him we'll talk about later. Our next blue-yellow multicolor card, we run 2 copies of Trio de Dangers, Fierce Trinity. This card is kind of nuts and is one of the main reasons to play blue-yellow right now. You can pay it for 2 energy if your opponent has 2 energy and you have 2 or more blue or yellow battle cards. Not a very hard condition to meet. He's a 20k double strike that when he tags a Unison, it loses its skills. So it's a great way of like quickly removing your opponent's Unisons by turning them off. It also has deflect, so it can't be counterplayed, which is nice. And as extra tech, when it attacks a battle card or a Unison, your opponent can't negate. So you can also use this as a sort of like soft removal to like your opponent has like a threat and rest mode. You can swing into it and then use a lot of your like combat tricks that require you to combo stuff and use that combo power to like basically get over the battle card and kill it, and then play other stuff for free. So a really good card in the deck. Kind of a blue-yellow staple. Moving on, we play 3 copies of Son Goku and Hit, Supreme Alliance. There's not a whole lot to say here. This card is basically a 15k on attack, 20k on defense. It can restand on both players' turns, so you can either get 2 attacks or 2 blocks out of it, your choice. It's good for both offense and defense. There's not really a whole lot of like spicy, fancy tricks that we can do with it. But just a generally good card. On to our first unique and kind of interesting one-of. We play 1 copy of Frost Deadly Poison. So Deadly Poison's kind of fallen out of favor because 3 energy is a lot to counterplay something in this format, but this is a control deck, so we're playing a longer game. And again, Aegis will basically allow us to like trim these energy costs some by untapping 2. So at that point, we can kind of make this cost 1 if we need to, and 1 energy to counterplay like our opponent's big dumb stupid card is already really efficient because it blanks its skills and puts it in rest mode and replaces itself. And if we're at 3 life or less, it also untaps an energy. so that makes it cost 2. So this thing it's just an Aegis trigger away to basically be free. So you can get a lot of really good like this can save your butt against a lot of decks boss monsters, since there's not that many strong counterplays in the format right now. Next, we play 3 check lands. They bump our blue-yellow count. They're a good early charge for a multicolor. They're an easy charge later if we want to get a little bit of extra blue energy or extra yellow energy out to be safe. There's not a whole lot to say here. It's just to bump our count up, and it's an easy charge. We also play 3 hit rapid movement. We have some arrival shenanigans, so we need some kind of way to easily facilitate that. We don't want to have to waste our super combos on it early. Also of note is that hit's not terrible as a 4-drop, since it's a 4-drop 20k that basically removes one of our opponent's battle cards, which is actually not a bad effect, since we don't have a lot of ways to do that. We have better ways to spend our energy, of course, but if you're in a pinch, the fact that he is also hard printed removal is occasionally relevant. Our only mono yellow card in the deck, actually, we play 2 copies of Basal Fiddle Rampage. We don't have a lot of rest mode effects in this deck, but our opponent will usually do that for us. They have energy, battle cards they attack us with, their leader, things of that nature. So getting up to 5 cards in rest mode isn't too hard once you're like a few turns into the game. And at that point, Basal is a 1-drop 19k dual attacker that draws a card, which is just like absurdly stat efficient by pretty much every metric. So even though he's only good kind of layered in the game for us, we still play 2 just because he's so energy efficient. Next, onto our kind of multicolor staple, because we're playing a blue-yellow multicolor deck. We play a full playset of Goku Hit, Unforeseen Darkness. This guy kind of costs 1, since he untaps an energy at the end of the turn when you play him. So he's basically a 1-drop 15k that draws you 2 cards and then discards a card. So he's kind of good for finding certain pieces, adjusting our hand. He gives us like a 15 is a very relevant power level. So it's still a really good card, even though this is from like a while ago. It's still like an excellent promo, and it's one of the other payoffs we get for playing blue-yellow. Into our Unison package, we play a full playset of Baby, the Unknown Threat, or the Unknown Parasite. Baby's probably just the best blue Unison, and usually what we'll do is we'll tap out on turn 3 for this and then awaken to get an energy back. And then from here we draw a card off our leader, we draw a card off of this, and then we draw another card off at the end of the turn. So we're drawing 4 cards a turn, including our draw for our turn, with just these 2 cards out. So you get some like really crazy hand advantage in this deck that you can use to like bury your opponent in out situations. It's not unheard if you have like 12, 13, 14 cards in your hand, since you also kind of pick up your own life pretty fast. Also of note, his -5 gives your leader a 15k boost and double strike. In conjunction with the leader's ability to gain 5k in critical, you can, on a big turn, make your leader a 35k double strike critical swing. And then if your opponent tries to play a negate, you can play a Baby Golden Avenger for free. Spoilers, we play a couple copies of that guy too, to force the damage to go through, because 35 is quite a bit. They're probably going to take that, or invest way too many resources to get out of it. Either way, it's a win for you. Yeah, just overall excellent Unison. Because we have a Unison package, we play 3 copies of Trunks, God's Healing Technique. God's Healing Technique is the blue counterplay, and although it's starting to fall a little out of favor, because it still has some good targets, being able to just -1 from your hand to set your opponent back to 3-4 energy can be really important. And because we draw so many cards, we can usually afford the -1 for the tempo gain that we get from it. So it's it's just a great card in this deck. In theory, you can play it as a 15k beater, and there might be a couple of fringe matchups where you want that over the bounce effect, but 99% of the time, this guy is a bounce. Our other Unison required piece, we play 3 copies of Trunks, Heroic Prospect. Prospect is the closest thing that blue gets to a turn stop, and while there are a lot of decks that can play through his effect, and there are some decks that just don't care about it at all, The reality is that this is the best that we get other than Baby Hashiak. So it's better than nothing. And it's also important to remember that the floor on this card is a 1 energy negate that gives you a 15k body that you can also combo with later. So even if he's just like a negate, he's still like a stat efficient body with a negate stapled. That might make your opponent's turn a little awkward. So even, you know, at the floor for what this guy can be, it's still a very good card. As touched on, another classic kind of top end blue staple. We play 2 copies of Baby Golden Adventure. Baby is a counter or counter play, so he gives us some extra interactivity with our opponent's options and you know what they're doing when we're trying to kill them. We can play it for free off of our Unison if we use his -5, and he's a 30k triple strike that also removes an opponent's threat, ignoring barrier if memory serves. That also draws us a card. So really just good, well-rounded. You know, it just does a lot because he's so top heavy, and we can only usually play 1 a game. We just run 2. Okay, so because we are an Aegis deck, we have a lot of ways to dump energy because we can get that energy back on our turn. So the first energy dump we run is we have 2 copies of Gotenks, battling the forces of evil, kind of a silly name. Gotenks is a 20k barrier deflect double strike that if your opponent activates a counter, you basically wipe their board and untap 2 energy. So his swings pretty much always go through, and 20 double is threatening against most things in the game. This deck actually has surprisingly good battle card removal if the cards are in rest mode because of these cards right here. Both Gotenks and Traded Dangers. Your opponent can't, well, they can counter this, but then it bounces to the board, which usually gets your, you know, your intended effect across, and they can't activate a counter effect on this guy, period. So these cards you can use to, you know, attack your opponent's battle cards in rest mode, and they kind of have to let that swing happen. And then once that swing happens, you can do other stuff to play cards in battle and build some combo power and force them to lose it. So you actually have some decent spot removal here off of these cards just by swinging at stuff. Moving right along, our next big energy dump is our 2 copies of Abuni. Abuni is another, I hate to keep saying it, but this deck is just kind of a lot of blue good cards on top of a blue-yellow shell and some tech for it. Abuni is another great blue staple. Gives you 3 15k beaters that you can also combo with. They have combo power. He usually will untap an energy every turn for you at the end of your turn. You're pretty much guaranteed to at least get the body. You know, they can counterplay the tokens, but they can't counterplay him because he has deflect. And he's a little hard to remove because he can't be KO'd while you have a token. He's just like a really, really efficient, powerful blue card. Even in today's meta where things have kind of powered up a little bit from when Abuni first came out. Now, we did talk about a spicy inclusion to take advantage of Aegis. Now, most Aegis decks are base yellow, and they will use cards like Raider's Warcry or Bergamo, I think it's like Ferocious Rampage, Federal Roar, I forget what it is. The thing that rests your opponent's cards in response to resting stuff as their energy dump. We don't have that because we're a blue deck. So instead, we play 3 copies of Bojack the Evildoer. So Bojack is a 1+5k to combo, and then we can pay 2 more energy afterwards to after we combo with him to play him. So basically he's a 3+5k, which is like really inefficient, even though we get the card afterwards. But our Aegis can lower this down to 1 and pay for most of this cost. So it turns Bojack into like a 1-drop, which is really good for us. And at that point, Bojack is a 1-drop 20k dual attack that also removes one of our opponent's battle cards. So it's good for pressuring Unisons, pressuring damage on our opponent to, you know, make them discard cards. It removes basically anything without barrier. It's a very well-rounded, flexible card. It's a little energy expensive in this deck, but again, because of Aegis, we can kind of cheat on that cost. So this is our like main way we take advantage of that. Into some other blue staples, we play 3 copies of Dimension Magic. Sometimes we need to tap out for stuff, and D-Magic is a way for us to, you know, get our mana back open, usually by taking a life, but sometimes, you know, we can pay 1 to untap 1, get a negate. Very straightforward. There's not really a whole lot to say here. We don't have a lot of like fancy tech for it. But moving right along, in the same vein, we have 2 copies of Sensu Beam. Sense of Being is another, just good, battle hard, tested blue staple. We have a lot of ways to get out of wide swings in this deck because of things like our various blockers and rest mode effects. But sometimes we just need a 5k boost for the turn, or an extra energy on tap to, facilitate play lines. And Bean's great for that. Now into our super combos and kind of 2 SCRs. So our super combos, we have 2 copies of Zamasu Sacred Disbelief and 2 copies of Vegeta Disciplined Warrior. Disciplined Warrior just lets us cycle cards we don't need. In case our hand is clunky with multicolors, it helps fix it. We never charge yellow in this deck, so all of our energy will always be at least blue. So this card is always live. On the other hand, Zamasu is great because in addition to facilitating our arrivals early for us, the rest mode can kind of like mess with our opponent's turns. He's an absolute godsend against like aggro decks. And the fact that you can use him at any life total means he's also really useful in this deck. So we really like a 2-2 split. Now, obviously decks can only have 1 FCR, but Fu Shrouded is very close to a second SCR. Overwhelm 10 takes 6 energy. It's very easy to get to 10 in this deck because of all of our various Aegis effects and some extra cards and card cycling. You'll have 10 by turn 6 most of the time. He basically turns off your opponent's board, and then he's a giant double strike on top of, whatever else your leader is packing, and your opponent can't do anything about it. Unless they have a counterplay for him. So be careful against blue. You don't want to tap out 6 for this and get nothing for it. But in general, he's just like, this is like your main game ender if you get to turn 6, if you can't kill your opponent with the Unison combo. Or you could even stall it till turn 6 and play that, and then -5 the Unison and pump your leader and swing in with all of that plus a Golden Avenger, and like your opponent's gonna die. Like it's too much damage, and with no skills, they're not gonna get out of it. Finally, our actual SCR of the deck is Baby Hatchak. Baby Hatchak is a tried and tested blue SCR. It's probably the best blue SCR by a country mile. It pretty much stops your opponent's turn cold. As a general rule of thumb, you kind of want to wait until they put some energy into their plays before you use Hatchak, so you can like force them to commit to a board, and then make them unable to use it and clear it next turn. There are situations like if you're like really low on resources or desperate, or you don't want your opponent to get into the battle step at all, you might want to consider using this like out the gate. Every deck is different and every situation is different, but just something to keep in mind. But yeah, cards extraordinarily good. And that actually completes our deck profile for Stormfist Krillin. And now we're going to spend some time talking about what to do if you sit down and find Stormfist Krillin across the table from you. Now, realistically, this is probably not a leader that you're gonna, you're not gonna see people playing a whole lot of. It's not a very likely matchup for you. But what will over time be more likely is the advent of blue-yellow decks using this card, and I actually don't have my copies yet, so we're going to pull it up on the screen real quick. Is Zamasu the Eliminator, and we're going to spend a minute to talk about this card because this card is insane. So it counterplays any card that costs 4 or less. This will not hit extra cards because you activate extra cards and not play them, and they don't have a counterplay window. But when you play a Unison, at the moment you play it, you select an energy cost for it and pay that much. So while like a Unison is coming down, it has a specified energy, or it has like a set energy cost. So Zamasu the Infiltrator can bounce Unisons. So if you play 2 energy for Unison and they hit you with Zamasu the Infiltrator, it's not the end of the world, because they pay 2 energy and you pay 2 energy. They got like a random body on board that's not useful, but they do draw a card and rest a battle card, which hurts, and you're kind of down tempo that way. But where Zamasu gets nutty is if your opponent if you're playing like 3 cost or 4 cost Unisons. Heaven forbid if you're playing like the new Agent of Destruction blue Unison that costs 4, and you have that get hit with Zamasu. Now not only do they get like free resting and a free card advantage on you, but they also get an energy advantage because they're paying 2 energy to basically swing back 4 energy investment to your hand and you're stuck. So if you're playing Bojack, you also can't awaken that turn. So this card, this Zamasu the Infiltrator, is an absurd card. And in conjunction with Bojack, Bojack makes it more or less free because they can tap out and do stuff. And then on first battle, they can, you know, restand the energy off the Aegis trigger. And then the threat is live. So the best thing for you to do against this blue-yellow stuff that's going to be running around, like generically, is to only play like Unisons, if they have like less than 2 energy open, basically, you know, 1 or 0. Otherwise, unless you're desperate or you're paying it for 5 or more, but that's pretty rare to pay a Unison for 5 or more, you're just going to get that, you risk having that Unison throw back at your hand, and that's really bad. The other thing that's rough is that this like blue-yellow stuff, you can play it like this is like a blue leader here, and you probably won't, like I said, you won't see much Stormfist Krillin, but like the new blue Bojack deck is getting some multicolor support soon, like in like the next Surge Spirit Boost like support set. We're getting a blue-yellow Bojack that basically always combos for free and charges in active mode. So that's a card that you know, these decks can run and threaten with now. You know, Mecha Frieza still typically dips into blue. They're kind of a more aggressive deck, so they may not run it. But if they felt like they needed to, they could probably have it in the sideboard. Some people might opt to mainboard it anyways. Other yellow decks that people are just like messing around with can easily threaten this. So if you're up against blue-yellow, Zamasu the Infiltrator is like the big card that you should have in your mind, which is kind of why I chose to do this like kind of like for fun, like blue-yellow thing, because I wanted to use this as a way to talk about that card. If you even think you might play blue-yellow, I think right now that card is like $50 or $60 a pop. You might want to consider getting at least 2 or 3 if not a full playset, because sooner or later that card will probably start showing up in lists that top and might go back up in price, even further than what it already is. But time will tell on that one. With that being said, kind of an unusual, you know, how to play against it lesson, we're actually going to get over to our giveaway. So we're going to see you guys on the screen right now. And we're at the video. What is going on, guys? All right, so check it out. There are a grand total of 16 of you who have decided to, you know, support us and subscribe to the channel. And to each and every one of you guys, I want to say thank you. I really appreciate it. You know, we're a smaller channel, and the support helps both from, you know, you guys and the other channels who've looked out and watched us. There were a grand total of 16 of you who have commented. So we're going to do this giveaway right now. And we've got this set up, and we're going to do this live. Got a 1 through 16, and we're going to go from the top. The most recent comment will be number 1. The first guy who was here will be number 16. And number 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Nathan Wilson, thank you very much. You are the winner of the box. Go ahead and reach out to us, either to me personally on my personal Facebook page, or you can reach out to us on the channel's page on Facebook, which will be included in the description. But you win, so we're going to touch base with you and make sure you can get that box. All the rares and foil, they're already sleeved for you. We've got that all set up and ready to go. For everyone else, thank you for support. Thanks for dropping by. And once again, thanks for entering the chamber. Catch you in the next one, guys.